arguably, that's also covered. That's also covered by law.
Existing.
Yeah, because you have a business and the NIRC and Create now says you will pay 25%. No.
Ang sa kunyari kayo.
Yeah. So again, we have to clarify this because some of them refuse to pay for some reason. Some of the service provider would insist that their service is part of the gaming revenue. That's why we have to make these distinctions. So there's the gaming revenue, the non-gaming revenue of the POGO, and then there is the service provided by the service providers of 25%. Okay? And then I go to the
Existing.
income, the compensation income. So for the compensation income, all of the employees will be subject to a 25% final withholding tax. And there is an assumption of a minimum final withholding tax of 12,500 pesos per month, which computes to a 50,000 peso salary per month or 600,000 pesos per year. And again, this is not anything new. That is actually part of the discussions we had yesterday. It is just clarifying existing law na hindi ito yon. Because this representation, your committee is not introducing any new concept. We are not giving a different kind of treatment to these non-resident aliens. They are the same treatment in the existing NIRC, but we're just clarifying because over the years, they have given excuses that they're not covered and therefore they'll pay another tax or won't pay at all. So we are just clarifying.
Yun na nga. So in effect, merong mga nagpapalusot
Yes.
or nagre-reason out na hindi kami covered. So bali ang kanilang theory is reading the current wording of the tax provisions, we are not covered. Ganun ba yun? That's why we are now tightening. We are tightening the language or enacting a very specific law to cover the particular phenomenon or part of the gaming industry called ano ba tawag dito? Online gaming or offshore online gaming. Is that what's this, the ultimate goal of our measure, Mr. President?
Yes, and just to clarify further, I started with the POGOs. Let me point out that we have foreign-based POGOs and Philippine-based POGOs. Again, we are clarifying that both kinds will be covered by the 5% tax because the foreign-based POGOs also took the position that they are not covered at all.
Okay. So the foreign-based POGOs and the Philippine-based POGOs, some, siguro, sorry, is it correct to say that all foreign-based POGOs are adopting the position that they're not covered, and then maybe some of the...
We know that there are some who did, but we will ask PAGCOR to provide us with the details if it's all or just some. All we know is it has caused confusion because some refuse to pay.
So yes, precisely. So that means that this measure is actually now meant to eliminate the confusion.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. President.
Okay. So but there are also two categories of the players in the POGO industry. So the ano ba yung tawag? The gaming licensee, the offshore gaming licensee, and then the service provider. That service provider, which is covered by our measure, must be either incorporated or located in the Philippines. It cannot be an offshore or foreign-based service provider.
Yes, Your Honor. The service providers must be organized in the Philippines. Unlike the POGO that can be foreign-based, our service providers must be organized under Philippine law.
That's correct. That's the current wording of the measure. But have we encountered a service provider who is providing business to a POGO business but based outside of the country? Baka naman makalusot din yun.
I recall asking that scenario in our preparation for this debates, Mr. President. That is possible, that there is a foreign service provider, but then it is servicing an offshore company, so hindi na natin na-capture yun.
Okay, so there's no foreign-based
Service provider that we are capturing.
servicing a Philippine-based
None.
uh,
No, there.
Pogo.
Service providers, yes.
Service provider.
Iba-ibang combination ba?
About the Philippine base.
Ano lang naman yan, apat naman combination yan. Ano?
Okay, Mr. President, I was just trying to, like His Honor, I was trying to explore the what ifs. So, but basically under the law, what we are capturing are service providers who, what we say in our law is service providers must be organized in the Philippines.
Yes, that's what.
I was trying to explore the what if.
Yes.
Well, what if they get a foreign service provider? Well, hindi natin captured yon, and technically they are required, sabi nga, they are
Yeah.
required to use a local service provider.
No, that's why I'm pointing that out, Mr. President, because if you want to tighten the law, let us tighten it.
Yes, I agree.
Kung sino yung nakalusot, ikalusot.
I agree.
Because
Money also in the service providers, no? So what we don't want to happen is, in fact, if I may just add to His Honor's visual, that's why we made it we made the tax on POGOs who have their in-house services the same as the tax on the service providers that they hire. So that yung foreign POGO wouldn't be incentivized to have their own services. They would hire our Filipinos
Fine.
because they have to be captured by the tax,
okay.
by the same tax.
Yes, okay. So subject to the principle in the tax code that the service must be performed in the Philippines to be a taxable income. Is that the correct interpretation?
Yes, the citus.
Yes, that's
Yes.
okay. So if there is a foreign offshore gaming licensee and a foreign service provider, but yet that foreign offshore gaming licensee also taps Philippine-based service providers who are now covered under the measure that we are talking about. I'm now mentioning three entities, Madam Sponsor. The
So your foreign-based POGO, that's one.
Yes, foreign-based POGO who
And then-
are service providers which are mixed Some are Philippine-based service providers, and then some are foreign-based service providers who will be
definitely-
subject to our
So definitely the
tax.
POGO, the foreign-based POGO would be taxed the 5%. The service provider that they use is a Philippine, should be registered in the Philippines and would be taxed the 25% final tax. But the foreign one is not captured. So I am told by PAGCOR that hindi pwede yon. Pero I agree with his honor, well, let's tighten it, di ba? Let's be clear. Kung hindi pwede, then let's say that hindi niya pwedeng gawin yun. Now, that's where we stand right now, unless they advise us otherwise, no?
Yes, because that's why I brought up that concept,
Yes.
which we should probably refer to the tax experts on the, what's this, the, where the service which generated the income was performed.
I think there's no argument that we cannot capture them. So, but what we can do is we can insist that you must get the services here. Your service provider must be registered in the Philippines. I think we can insist on that. Kasi hindi nga natin makakapture kung wala nga dito.
Nga. So, but is that now currently the wording of the measure, or we'll have to amend it to capture that idea?
Because when I clarified this, ang sabi lang sa akin, hindi natin captured yan. But His Honor raises a good point that, and I always like to try to foresee, like, what if there's an incentive out there that we don't know of that makes it more practical for them to get a foreign service provider. So, what's that? Okay. Sorry, let me just read what we have in our committee report. An accredited service provider to an offshore gaming licensee shall be a corporation that is duly created and registered. So we captured it. Sorry, I stand corrected.
What page
We
and what
captured
line?
it.
What line, ma'am? What page?
Page 5, line 10. Yes.
Yes, doesn't this refer to the service provider which must be incorporated, organized in the Philippines?
That's why it says shall be a corporation that is duly created and organized in the Philippines. So we're saying that when a foreign POGO will look for their service provider, they must get a service provider that is incorporated in the Philippines. And what they're trying to explain to me on the practical side, well, the reason why they registered to do business in the Philippines is because precisely they want to avail of the services of Philippine service providers. So on the practical side, that is why they are here.
Yes, Madam Sponsor, but these services that are related to POGO operations, given their nature, do not really have to be done here in the Philippines. Like, di ba, these are gaming software platform, call centers, IT support. So it's really real-time streaming of the games. These are done here, but there could be, di ba? There could be a service supporting a POGO operation which can conceivably be done outside of the Philippines. So if we will now force all POGO operators to get the services of Philippine incorporated or organized service providers, then are we not now interfering with their business judgment?
May I interject, Mr. President? May I comment on that? Mr. President.
The indulgence,
Yes, of course.
Senator Pimentel and the good sponsor, we recognize Senator Villar.
I think online gaming is not encouraged, especially in China. In fact, they closed their offshore POGOs in Cambodia. They prohibited that, and they only allowed the Philippines because maybe it's a favor to the Philippines. But I don't think they encourage online gaming in China because it's causing them too much trouble, except that they still allow it here in the Philippines. But I know in Cambodia, they closed their POGOs there. That's what I heard. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. The minority floor leader is raising his hand. That's what I heard. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, yes, Mr. President, just a short intervention with the permission of the sponsor. and Senator Pimentel, who has the floor.
Yes, we recognize Senator Drilon.
Yes, Mr. President. You know, Mr. President, this discussion on the service providers, from what I can understand, is if the service provider is organized and domiciled in a foreign country and under foreign laws, but renders services to an offshore gaming licensee operating in the Philippines, that service provider is not taxed? Is that subject to our taxation? Is that what we are saying, ma'am? Isn't it a fact that the jurisdiction?
Discussion afterwards.
May I react to the
Yeah, go ahead.
input of the minority leader? I think the minority leader is emphasizing that principle that for services rendered in the Philippines, which generate some taxable income, then we can make our tax laws applicable to those services. So I think that's the principle that's being observed by the current measure. That's why our discussion was extending it beyond services rendered outside, but still helpful to the POGO, which operates in the Philippines and generates income in the Philippines.
No, no, sir. I am concerned about what I understand, and I may be wrong, that if it is incorporated and has residence outside the Philippine jurisdiction, they are not subject to our taxes because they are not organized under Philippine laws. Is that a correct understanding of the proposal, Mr. President?
As I understand the current measure, Mr. President, an offshore gaming licensee can be organized abroad and yet subject to this measure, taxes of this measure.
Yes.
So
We're talking about the service provider, Senator
the
Pimentel.
service provider. That's why the wording of the measure, which I have noticed, is that it forces the POGO licensee to hire Philippine organized service providers.
No.
Ganun ang
In fact,
nangyari.
in all due respect, sir, they will be hiring those which are organized abroad because those who are organized abroad are not subject to tax, if I understand the provision correctly. So maybe, Senator Pimentel, we first ask the sponsor, were in cases of service providers organized under the laws of China, renders services to an offshore gaming licensee operating in the Philippines, and the services are done in the Philippines, whatever that service is, would the fees paid to the service provider be subject to withholding tax? That's the first question.
Yes, subject to tax, hence to the mandate to withhold a certain amount. That is actually
Yes.
what we are discussing, Minority Leader. And I believe
That's why
that
I want to have an
sponsor
answer.
realizes that it is not yet covered, I think she is open to amending the measure to make sure that it is covered. Should that not violate that principle that we have stated, that the activity generating the income must be located in the Philippines?
Yes, that's why I'm asking the good
Yes, sir.
sponsor if what is the first.
Gentleman from Cagayan de Oro in his e-transaction bills. Because of the new nature, no, it's not as easy to determine where the situs is. So basically, let me explain the assumptions we have and what we currently have in the committee report. But then again, I'm very open. Like His Honor correctly pointed out, I'm very open. But based on what we have is that the foreign POGO has a license to do business in the Philippines. And then the service providers, the reason they choose to do business in the Philippines is because there are service providers in the Philippines. Now, that's the practical reason why they are in the Philippines. The service providers are in the Philippines. Now, having said that, futures thinking, I was telling my team, well, what if 5 years from now, Argentina, El Salvador, Colombia has service providers that are now offering competitive rates, no? So that might be an option. So the first response there is, number one, we cannot cover them because they're not within the tax situs. The services rendered are from a foreign corporation. The betting happens not in the Philippines. The payouts, the winnings are made to foreigners as well. So hindi daw natin captured yan. But, like I said, I am very open. If we can create, if we have the experts who will help us define that the tax situs is
Why
actually
don't
happening in the Philippines, then I am very open.
Mr. President, can I make a comment?
Yes, with the permission of Senator Pimentel and the good sponsor, we recognize Senator Villar.
Since we're the one giving the franchise, can we not require them to get a Filipino service provider? Because
Yes.
the life of their company is the franchise from the Philippines. They wouldn't get those franchise from other countries. I don't think they will be given in China, and China is prohibiting in other countries. So they only have a choice to get it from the Philippines. Maybe we can require them that one of the condition would be they will hire a Filipino service provider. That can be part of the law. Diba?
And to clarify, that is how we worded it already.
Yeah.
We are open if our colleagues would like to strengthen that, but I will repeat, the way it is currently worded, it says that an accredited service provider to an offshore gaming license